Good evening, Nubian gods and goddesses. TB Wahid in the living room, Black Living Room Talk. How is everything going on in your neck of the woods? Are you still being safe? Because we all know that it is better to be safe than sorry. Please do continue to take the necessary precautions. In spite of the bans that are being lifted, you will want to protect yourself and your family. I'm getting right into the very first chapter of The Racist Mind by Raphael S. Ezekiel, a portraits of American neo-Nazis and Klansmen. This is the very first chapter. The first couple of readings I did were the introductions, because I wanted you to truly understand this book and how he goes in and he does the interviews and he gets into the mind of a racist. Because, this will really give clarity to some of us that may not really truly know what racism means or who is a racist. Because usually racists have some type of power and they can marginalize people and pretty much control the lives of those that they oppress. It's all about money and power. So let's not forget that the victim can't be a racist. We respond to the hate that is given. So let's jump right into the gatherings, the first chapter. Over the years, I have gone to a small number of racist conclaves and rallies. Most have involved indoctrination speeches in the daytime and robed ceremonials at night, usually around the flaming cross. Gatherings will be publicized through movement, newspapers, and by word of mouth. Some are very local, drawing from a small region. Others are meant to be national and draw middle level and top leaders from across the country. I had not especially thought of going to this sort of gathering when I began this work. My attention was on getting to know individuals well. But observing gatherings turned out to be as valuable as anything I had done. I did not come to a gathering unannounced or in disguise. I would first check with some national leader to let him know I wanted to be on hand. While at the gathering, I would listen and watch. Most of the people present would know by word of mouth who and what I was. Sometimes I would start short conversations with strangers, explaining myself and asking questions. Other times I just listened. The gatherings gave me a completely different window on the movement than the interviews gave. I could hear how members talk to one another, the kind of language they use, the sorts of trust and mistrust they showed. I could hear the kinds of words that came up in their conversations. I could watch how tense their bodies were when they stood talking with a stranger from another racist group. I could see the wide variety of people in attendance. I could see ordinary-looking folk and tense, desperate-looking folk. I could hear quiet drawls and loud mouths. Crucial to my work is that in the speeches, I heard the ideas that they were presented. Crucial to my work is that in the speeches I heard the ideas that were influential in the way the ideas were presented. I could see the kind of education and followership that was involved, and most important of all, I would hear the great similarity between the speeches and the overheard snatches of conversation. I learned a lot by hanging around. The next 3 chapters deal with 3 gatherings, 2 voluntary and 1 involuntary. All came within the first year and a half of my interviews with national leaders. Klan rally at Stone Mountain, Georgia. This chapter describes a rally at Stone Mountain, Georgia. One or more of the clans has hosted this rally every year. Speakers are leaders from across the country. Attendees include highly active members of supremacist groups in Georgia, the Carolinas, and Tennessee, mostly Klan groups, and curiosity seekers from the immediate vicinity. This was my first view of the organized supremacist movement beyond the one group of young Nazis in Detroit whom I had been interviewing. More important, as I will relate, the experience of being seen only as a Jew, not as a person who had a name, a history, friends, children, produced powerful feelings of sadness and loneliness. To experience the emotions firsthand was to visit briefly, under temporary and artificial conditions, the inner world of individuals assaulted by social context on the basis of a group label only. Those assaulted by racism, by the hatred and fear of women, or by the hatred and fear of homosexuals. 3 years after I had been interviewing members of a neo-Nazi group in Detroit, I began the work with national leaders through conversations with the late Robert Miles at his farm in Cohocton, Michigan. Miles had once headed the Klan in Michigan and now held unity meetings for far-flung racist groups at his farm twice a year, as well as publishing a monthly newsletter. His phone rang incessantly when we talked. The calls came from across the country. He was one of the main figures holding the white racist movement together and supplying it with ideas. As we were talking one afternoon in July, he suggested that I go down to the Labor Day rally at Stone Mountain, Georgia, if I really wanted to know what the Klan was about. He gave me the names of several leaders who lived in Atlanta so that I could make arrangements. Late in August, I decided this was a good idea. Other than Miles, I had never known anyone who openly discussed any connection to the Klan. I could observe a large group of Klansmen. It would be a good way to start this leg of the work. I called several people whom Miles had suggested. They were non-committal but said to call them if I came down. I flew down with misgivings. It was a long, long time since my boyhood in Texas. I had spent 2 years as a draftee in Georgia during the Korean War. In the 1970s, I had once driven through North Carolina to the ocean. Other than that, I had not been in the South since 1944, but I had ideas. The South was where they killed people. At the airport terminal in Detroit, I heard Southern accents. "This is nuts," an inner voice said. But I did need to meet the South again, and more, I needed to walk as a human among some Klanspeople and gain a sense of them as humans. A friend had suggested that for my safety I should let the FBI know what I was planning and where I was going to be. I had turned the suggestion down. My work has always depended on building an atmosphere of trust. I want respondents to be open with me, and I have to earn that openness by treating the respondents with honesty. I also thought it would be dangerous to have a police contact that I was trying to hide, and I have avoided contact with police agencies throughout this work. It looked like a very lonely 3 days coming up, and I had managed to contact an old student of mine who lived in Atlanta, and we hoped to see each other while I was down there. The Atlanta terminal was a shock. The gleaming metals and sophisticated lighting in the hallways screamed the distance that this cosmopolitan center of the New South had moved since the mid-50s. Much more impressive and significant were the self-confident faces, the brisk walk, the expensive lustrous shoes, the crisp suit jackets, the narrow ties of the small army of African American professionals and businessmen who marched through the terminal, with equally well-dressed and confident black women at their sides. Memories welled up, the misery of black life in my hometown, the rags and the dust. Obviously, Atlanta must include the same poverty-filled stretches that Detroit did in the towns of my youth. But I was excited to see evidence of a healthy black middle class that was not minuscule. I looked with awe. Okay, my Nubian gods and goddesses, that is the first part of the gatherings, where he's starting to go and be a visitor in on and listening to conversations and asking questions. So I'm going to stop right there where he says he was looking at the people in awe. He saw the professional African American men and women going about their business every day, working and owning businesses and everything in Atlanta. He's in Atlanta, Georgia. So we're going to be going through that, and I hope that you are enjoying this reading as much as I am. This is called The Racist Mind, Chapter 1, The Gatherings, by Raphael S. Ezekiel. TB Waheed in the living room. Until the next time, peace.